Well, with all the heat we've had here in California, I have been doing a lot of YouTube reading and recipe looking up and all sorts of things other than moving around. I have been out in the garden early in the morning, planted some new tomato plants. I found some. But what I'm doing in the kitchen today is making one of Jamie Oliver's pastas. Now, do you remember Jamie Oliver? He's from the UK, and I bet 20 years ago, even more than that, we used to watch Jamie on television. He had his own show, and at that time he was a young 20-year-old, really fun and funny cook. Always loved the cooking. He lived out in the country, has this beautiful old country kitchen with a lot of wood and rock. And he was very flamboyant. And when he cooked, he'd raise his hands, and he was funny. And he could do that flipperoo with the pan and everything. Well, he still has programs on YouTube, and I've been watching them. And I was enthralled by a couple of his recipes. One that I'm going to make next week with my cherry tomatoes as a pasta sauce. Now, most of the things I was watching were pasta recipes, and the one I'm doing today is a mushroom sauce pasta fettuccine with garlic and some basil from my garden, which I did go out and pick. I almost died out in the garden, it was so hot. But I have all the ingredients here, and he has one surprise that he adds, and I will make it for you now. And Moosey and I will eat it in probably 20 minutes or half an hour. So here goes. Now I have the water boiling on the stove for the fettuccine, and I'm about ready to put it in. It takes about 12 minutes, and that's what it should take to do the rest of this dish on the stove. So I'm probably going to put in maybe a little more than half the box. And I don't really want too much left over because I don't think that the sauce would be that great. It might be left over. So here I go, putting this in, and then I'll explain to you what we have here. Now, Jamie does some clever thing, twisting to be able to get this sort of lovely looking thing the way he puts pasta in, and he also salts the water quite a bit, which I'm going to do too, because that's all part of his repertoire here, using a lot of the water, the starchy salted water, for the sauce. So I have everything here ready to go. Now this is, as I said, a fettuccine pasta. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to brown some crumbs, breadcrumbs, Italian breadcrumbs, with a little bit of garlic. I've chopped up 4 cloves of garlic. I'm going to use half of this mixed in with the breadcrumbs, get them slightly browned, set them aside, and those will be part of a topping on top of this. I'm going to start that. Then I'm going to put that aside. Then I'm going to chop up a little more onion. I have some onion all ready to go here. And then I'm going to chop up some mushrooms. Now I wish I had 2 boxes of these. He used 2 boxes. I only have 1. It's what I had in my refrigerator. I'm going to chop these up, and I'm going to saute these with onion and get it nice and ready to go. When I've done that, his surprise is, believe it or not, he could have done something very clever, but he put a can of mushroom soup in, just dropped it in after the mushrooms had sauteed and browned, and a little bit of water filled up in the can, mushed it around, and got it going. And he threw in some spinach, I think. Well, I'm going to throw in some leftover broccoli. Cindy left some broccoli that she had already cooked, and I'm just going to use the rest of it, chop it up. Moosey's not wild about broccoli, but I'm going to put this in too. And that's pretty much it. I love how he takes the fettuccine noodles out of the water with like a giant tweezer. I forget what you call that thing. And he drops it right into the pan with the mushrooms, with the water dripping in. Not much, but lets it drop in. That way you get the salted, starchy water. I don't usually do that, but I'm going to. Now I hear my fettuccine boiling and I want to turn it down a bit. Now, I shouldn't be doing a hot pasta right now in my kitchen today. My tiny little kitchen is starting to heat up from the boiling water and for starting the stove. It's so hot I should have made a salad today, but my mind was so set on doing this from reading Jamie's recipe, I just had to do it. Now, I've just salted the water. I've put a little bit of olive oil in the pan, which is heating up, and I've used my giant, sort of a deep frying pan, because I'm going to mix all the pasta right in here with the mushroom and the sauce. I'm going to start with half of the chopped up garlic. And then I have about half a cup, I would say, of the Italian breadcrumbs. And I'm just going to let those brown up. I'm just going to let those brown up here. Pasta still has a while to go, so I'm sure this will work out. I can just smell the garlic. Now the breadcrumbs are soaking up the oil, so we're just going to leave them here to brown. Okay, I'm going to take that off the heat, and I'm going to put it back in the jar, and then I'm going to get started on the mushrooms. I'm going to chop up the onions a little more so that I have more onions in this. As we know, onions make a dish. Now, the onions don't have to be chopped up that small for this, because these will saute, and we don't want them to get brown. We just want the color. I'm going to put these in to the dish first. And then I'm going to chop up the mushrooms. And I have a whole box here. As I say, he used 2 boxes. I wish I had them, but I don't. But I think this will make us a sufficient sauce. Can you imagine what 2 boxes would have made? As you know, when you start cooking mushrooms, they do reduce down, so we won't have this nice big pile of mushrooms. Now a little bit of oil also in the pan. Let's see what else I have. I'm going to throw in the rest of the garlic, by the way. And as soon as the mushrooms are decreased, cooked, I am going to put the can of soup in, add a little water, and then we should be able to put the pasta in. Now I have to chop up my basil, because this is what he tops it with, besides the browned breadcrumbs. Here's my mushrooms and onions with some olive oil, and they should cook quickly, as you see. Turn the heat down a little bit. Pasta's almost ready. As I was editing, I realized that the clip of adding the condensed mushroom soup, the can of water, and the broccoli or the spinach to the mixture didn't record. So please make sure to do that right before adding the pasta to the mixture. So sorry. Now let's see if I can do this like Jamie did. So he takes a big chunk of this out, do you see? And he just pops it right in to the water. And he lets the salted water drip in, because he said that adds to the flavor. Mix it up. It's going to be plenty pasta. I wish I had had more mushrooms. I think that would have been a better sauce, but this still should taste good. A few little stranglers here. Well, I'm sure Jamie didn't get the pasta all over his stove, but that's okay. Now, I don't know how to do that, hold the thing, and I can't even lift this pan, it's so heavy, but I'll just stir instead of flip. Okay, I think I'm ready to plate. I want to make sure Moosey's awake first. Ready to serve. I'm whipped. Huh? Ooh. You know, I think I'll use this for the pasta. Much better. Oh, this looks good. Smells delicious. I smell the garlic. I smell the onions. I smell mushrooms. Mushrooms on top. Now here's those crunchy crumbs that we heated up. You put those on top. And that has garlic in them, so they should be tasty. And I can even feel the crunch. So this is good. And the garnishing of basil. Now, once again, Moosey's not wild about too much basil, so I won't give him much. Wow. If nothing else, it's pretty. So let me come around and show you how pretty it looks. My perspiration is dripping down my face, pardon that. This is Jamie Oliver's recipe. It is fettuccine pasta with mushroom sauce with onions and garlic, a little bit of broccoli, and on the top are roasted breadcrumbs with garlic and some basil for garnish. Does that look good? Moosey, come on in.
Oh my goodness.
Does this look good or what?
That doesn't only look good, it smells good.
And it has the roasted breadcrumbs. And that's a wrap. Now I have to wipe my forehead and go and eat. Well, Moosey and I just finished dinner. And I had to take off my beaded necklace. It was choking me. I just about was able to finish my dinner. I was so overheated. It wasn't the dish to make on a hot day like this, but I did get Moosey's reactions. We didn't do the taste test, and people always say, oh, you should have tasted it, and you're right. Moosey had some things to say about it. He loved it because, number one, he's a big mushroom fan. He didn't feel that we needed more mushrooms. He didn't feel that it had to be more of a soupy sauce. Ordinarily, our pastas are more soupy, but the difference between the way I normally do a pasta and the way Jamie does it is he takes out the pasta from the boiling pot, and while it's dripping wet with the salted water, he drops it into the sauce. Now, I usually put the pasta in a bowl and then cover it with the sauce, but I think what he does and mixes it all together is better. But I don't know whether I'm going to put this on or not. I'm going to leave it off, I think. It's just too hot. By the way, it has the matching bracelet, and I did get this a year or two ago. I do have it in blue as well, and it's quite clever, isn't it? The beads and the wood, I just love it. Anyway, to talk about the meal, Moosey's least favorite part was the toasted breadcrumbs mixed in with the garlic. He felt that although I didn't even use the whole thing up, I just put it as a topping on the top, as Jamie does. but he felt that the taste and the consistency of the very crunchy of everything sort of took away from the mushroom taste. The garlic taste was rather strong. I, on the other hand, loved it, as did, I told you, Jamie's wife. That was her favorite part of it all. So to each his own. But anyway, Moosey absolutely loved it and is finishing it. I could only finish not even half. And I think it's because I'm I'm so overheated. I think that's why. But it was a fun meal to make. And I did have to go out in the garden and pick the basil. And while I was out there, I realized that everything needed a little water. So I shouldn't have done that while I was out there. This heat's driving me crazy. Probably because I'm getting older and it's just not fun anymore. Now, I had an idea for the next video. As I was doing my nails with my foil polish, was it yesterday or the day before, and I've thought of this the last couple of times that I have tried to do some cuticle work. My moons, now are you still familiar with that term? In the old days, well, you know that everybody has a moon to each nail. At least that's what we called it. And we were always pushing back the cuticles on our nails to show the moon and clipping cuticles. Now, maybe people who have their nails done in a salon have that done all the time. But when, at least probably before college, when I was a little girl, I remember my mother putting polish on and always leaving the moon exposed. You never put polish on the moon of your nails. How many of you remember that or remember your mother doing that? I remember that I was fascinated with a girl that lived next door to us when we lived in Bloomfield, New Jersey. Now, we moved from that home, as I think I've told you this before, when they built the Garden State Parkway, we were sort of in the path, and we had a big canal and bridle path next to us, and that was all taken away with the Garden State Parkway. So we moved. Our house wasn't taken away, but the house next door to us, the one that was on the end, was knocked down. And in that home, there lived a family that their last name was a Roggenhofer. And Mrs. Roggenhofer and Mr. Roggenhofer, I believe, were from Germany. And they had one daughter, Ruthie. I was a young girl of probably, well, definitely under 12. From the time I was a young girl, they always lived there. And Mom and Mrs. Roggenhofer were friends. She was a very clever lady. And as a matter of fact, she was left-handed. And when my mother was teaching me how to knit, Mrs. Roggenhofer was helping me because I was left-handed, and she was instrumental in helping my mother get this left-handed gal knitting. But anyway, Ruthie, the daughter, was, I don't know, 18, maybe she was in her young 20s. I don't know how old she was, but she was a young, very young, gorgeous woman. She had that striking face with high cheekbones and beautiful eyes. I always remember her lips were always dark red lipsticks or red of some sort. But she had beautiful nails, always had her nails done, always in dark polish, and always had the moon exposed. And when Mrs. Roggenhofer would come over and sit with my mom in the backyard and have tea, iced tea or whatever, Ruthie sometimes would come over, and I would sit there and I was enthralled with Ruthie and what she did with her nails, the way she dressed and how she put her makeup on and whatever. Isn't that funny? Do you remember someone that you totally admired as a child just for certain reasons? But that's what I remember about nails. Now, those of you who do have your nails done in salons, do they still, as one of the ways of doing polish in a different way, do they still expose the moon? Or I know they push cuticles back, but not to expose the moon for nail polish. Anyway, that's something that's nostalgic. And I thought, getting back to my original premise, that it would be fun in the next video to talk about different nostalgic things that you remember as a young girl or older that either you or your mother did that was different in the way of beauty products or makeup or hair. What kind of curlers did you use? What styles did your mother have? What styles did you have? I remember one other thing that I'll save for next about something my mother put on her face that I used to try. It was a product, and it was a disaster on me. But as you know, I have told you that I did not really get into makeup for many, many years, other than I did put mascara on my eyes, but I didn't do foundation and rouge and everything. I didn't do that till, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I used to put, pinch my cheeks when I was in high school, I remember that, but I used to put maybe lipstick on my cheeks, but no foundation, only because my face was dry and it didn't take the makeup. So I can't talk too much about makeup products, but I can talk about skincare and the things that I did for that. So we'll talk about some of those. And if you can think about some of the things you would like to say in a comment, jot them down and have them ready for your comments, because I know everyone reads the comments. So maybe that's what we'll do in the next video. Well, I'm ready to stretch out on my bed and get back to the air conditioner. As a matter of fact, I had to turn Moosey's air conditioner off here because it's too loud when I do a video. So that's what we're doing for today. I think if I have room in this video besides the cooking, I might take a picture of, walk down the driveway and take a picture of Colleen's pumpkin patch, which I'm enthralled with. By the way, I also planted my 2 tomato plants this morning, and hopefully we'll have something. And many of you have told me that I can grow tomatoes from the seeds of some of the tomatoes that I eat. I'm gonna try that. Thank you. So goodbye for now. Thank you all for all your fun comments, for sharing some of the experiences that you've been sharing about aging and your experiences with grandchildren and being grandparents. I appreciate it so much, and I know everyone else enjoys reading about it too. Goodbye for now. Love you all. See you soon, and God bless us all.